Talk to you from this subject matter. I got a plan for you. I got a plan for you. In 1980, there was a young man who was going through some tough situations in his life. He was transitioning through his teenage years, and he felt some of the pressures of being coming up in this world. He knew all the do's and don'ts. He had a mother that laid down the law. But this boy sometimes was so curious, he pushed the envelope sometimes. This one particular day, he got into an altercation with one of the other students that was much older than him. So he decided he was going to take care of business the only way that he knew how. He went back home and he had found a gun in the house, and he decided the next day he was going to bring this gun to school. He came to school the next day, and he had his gun on him. He was prepared for the altercation that was going to take place that afternoon after school. Lo and behold, this young man got called to the office. He caught him off guard. He goes down to the office. Before he goes down to the office, he gives the gun off to a friend of his, telling him just to hold it. Now, just hold it till I come from around down to the office. When I come back, I'll get the gun, and I'll go on about my business. Well, this guy had other plans, and he ran around and was showing people the gun and all this kind of stuff. So people got aware of what was going on, and they had notified, the school officials, and the school officials, came back and rounded up these guys and brought them back to the office. He came in and he saw the gun laid out there, and he saw his jacket where he knew he had the gun when he gave it to his friend. So he said, well, whose gun is it? So the guy, he said, well, it's my gun. This is my gun, sir. I'm gonna stand up to it, right? So the officials of the school, they called the mother. They called the mother, and he was very afraid of his mother, because his mother had already told him, what to do, what not to do, how to conduct himself, and guns were totally not in play. So he hears his mother on the other side of the phone screaming and hollering, and his first reaction was, okay, I would rather go to jail to deal with what I'm going to have to deal with when I get home, right? So he understood there are ramifications for going against the authority that's placed over you. He understood there was going to be trouble on the horizon, whether it be in the school or outside of school. There's going to be some things that's going to happen because I've stepped outside of what I knew that was right? Excuse me. There are times, though, when we make choices that are not of God, and there are repercussions behind the choices that we make. God tells us through His Word what we're supposed to do, and with a lot of times we find ourselves doing contrary to what God has asked us to do, because there are other things that come up in our mind, other things that come up in our psyche that kind of pulls us away. Sometimes we let other people influence what decisions we're going to make. A lot of times we don't go to the Word of God, ask God what He wants us to do. We'll let other people influence us, and then we'll take on their mindset opposed to what God would have us to do, right? And then we sit back and wonder, why in the world am I going through this when I understand what God told me, but it's still something inside of me that says, girl, you right. I'm going to follow what you said because I've seen it work for you. Now, this could be somebody who's not even connected to God, yet they say something that twinkles our ear and we follow it. Come on now. The rationale sounds good, right? So where do we find in Jeremiah? Jeremiah is talking to the people of Judah who had gotten out of line. God allowed them to get out of line. Hey, look, these are the choices that you make, right? So they followed others, and the examples that others set before them, and they followed them, right? So they start listening to preachers that were just tickling their ears. They start listening to preachers that said, if you just come down the aisle, I'll heal you. If you just come down here and give me your money, man, when you go home, you're going to have a mansion. All these different things. They had failed for the okie doke, as we would say, right? That they fell under the influences of people around them, and they start making decisions that was not of God. So God said, okay, I'm going to let you go on about your way, right? So when they get themselves into a place, God says, okay, now I got to get your attention, right? So now they're in exile. They're sitting around and wondering, how in the world did we get ourselves in a place like this? How did we fall for this? You know, when they got ourselves into a place, now we can't even go and harvest. We can't do the things that we had to do because we have got ourselves in a place where we listen to other folk who weren't connected to the word that we were. But at the time, it sounded good, didn't it? So we fell for it, right? But we got to think about it like this. We got to make the most of our situation. When we go through things, we got to make the most of our situation. And when God says, okay, when you go through something, like many of us right now, how many of us are just going through something right now? And how many of us said, I'm just going to make the best of this situation, or I'm just going to go through, you know, make a few Facebook posts or send out some tweets, and, you know, hopefully I get the revelation from there. He said, no. Sometimes you got to go through some situations to get to something, right? So he said, no. Not only that, I want you to prepare yourself when you get into a situation like this. In Romans 8:35 helps us. He said, nothing can separate me from the love of Christ. Not tribulation, not distress, nor persecution, famine. He said, we are more than conquerors. That's what he said when we're going through struggle. He said, you got to remember, we are more than what we're going through in our situation. We are more than what comes up against us, right? So in the early verse, he said, look here, not only that, I want you to plant something while you're there. He said, not only I want you to plant something, I want you to start building some houses while you're there. I want you to start having some families and stuff while you're there. And they sit around like, wait a minute now, we want to get out of this thing. Like a lot of us, we go through something, we want to hurry up and get out of it, right? He said, no. Because of the decisions you made, you're going to sit there for a while. But he already told them, you're going to be there for 70 years. I just imagine, you know, some of us come up against sentences like that in our own life. God said, look here, you're going to be there for 5 years, brother. I'm going to get you out of it. It's going to take me 5 years to work some things out, right? But we got to learn how to turn our tragedy into triumph. Amen. Turn your tragedy into triumph. He said, I want you to build, I want you to plant, I want you to settle down, make families, plant. We got to learn how to be productive when we go through the attacks that come up against us. We got to understand this. I got to be fruitful when I'm going through my struggle. Because if I'm being fruitful, that means what I'm planting will continue to grow. When we plant a garden, the garden continues to grow year after year. Only thing we have to do is clip some of the weeds and stuff that come up against it. But sometimes we got to put a fence around it so other animals won't attack what we plant there. But the one thing about a garden, if you continue to water it and take care of it, it comes back year after year after year. So they found themselves in a situation where everything is coming up against them. They're in a place that they're not familiar with. Because they made the decision they made, he said, be productive even while you're there. So you think about it, why in the world, how do I muster the strength to be productive in a situation like this? How can I be productive in a situation like this when everything seems to be coming up against me? We got to understand that God is still on the throne. Amen. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am, Lord. Use me as you feel. When I'm in that situation, I understand that God is doing a mighty thing in my life. When I turn my situation around and I can worship him in spirit and in truth, now I'm growing, right? That boy in that story, it was me. 30-some odd years ago, I was sitting in the juvenile because I walked against the authority that was over me. I had been given a certain amount of time that I was going to be locked up. Like the Jews, there's a certain amount of time that's attached to the crime that we commit against God. Come on now. There's a certain amount of time that we're going to go through our struggle. But we got to understand God still has a plan for us. So as I sat in juvenile and I'm contemplating the decision that I made, I understood this one thing. They gave me a sentence, so I knew I was going to get out of there at some point. So how do I be productive in a situation like this? So I got to understand the reason that got me here. and I understood this principle. I will never come back here. I got that. That was very clear to me once the door slammed behind me. I understood it. I ain't coming back here, right? So it was a learning moment for me. But some of us in the same situation where we get ourselves in these situations, but we don't turn away from them. We continue to go back to those situations when God gets us out of it. But I made a conscious decision. I'm not coming back in here. But this ain't the life for me. I'm not no thug. I'm not one of them type of people, man. I just got caught up one day. Thought I was somebody that I wasn't. Listening to the influence of other people. Now I got myself in a situation where I got trouble. I got trouble, right? But God says, I'm going to bring you out of it. But you got to learn how to serve me before you come out of it. God said, I have not abandoned you. I have not abandoned you. But God says, I'm about to reshape your future. Your mistake will be a testimony that I can deliver you and I will deliver others from. And I thought about that and I said, man, that was great. But at the time, when I was going through it, the only thing I wanted to do was get out. That's all I was consumed about. I didn't care about no spiritual foreground. I don't want to hear none of that. I need to get out of here. And a lot of us in that same place. You know, I just want to get out of my situation where God says, look around at your situation, see what I've done in your life, and see how I've come up against you, and see all the different things that's going on in your life, and make a commitment today, say, man, I'm not coming back here. I can't come back here no more. I made some decisions in my life that are not right, and I can't come back here because I understand, God, I've walked away from you. I got it. I got it now. I understand wholeheartedly now that I walked away from you. But we serve a God that loves us so much. He said, I will allow you to go through this situation, but I'm going to protect you. I'm still going to provide for you. I'm still going to do the things that you need to be done. But you got to understand, you're going to go through this because of the decision we made, right? But once I got out of juvenile, I was told that I had to complete all my missed work. I've been gone a couple months. So they said, in order for you to advance to the next grade, you're going to have to take all the work that was previously done in the class. You got to pass all those classes with A. Every assignment, I can't be a missed word or nothing. So I had all this work that I had to do. Then I had the work that was daily that I had to do as well. And back then, when we were on punishment, it wasn't like the kids today in punishment. They get to go sit in a room with their iPad for a couple of days. No. This was back when you only had 4 channels, 6, 8, maybe 13. You had a little bit of 40. Okay, but this was the thing. You ain't watching no TV. I didn't get to leave the room. I wasn't watching no TV, and I was suspended from school, so I couldn't go to school either. Now imagine that. You got all this work to do. You don't have no influence around you, but you and that work. That's good. What choice do you make? Yeah. Okay. So I knew I needed to get through all this challenge to get me to advance. I passed everything with A, right? And I was able to advance. My mother told me, you're going to be in the house for 1 year. Yeah, I laughed it off initially. But I was in there from one summer, through the winter, to the next summer. To that day, she let me out on that day. So when we used to go to 29th Street, I wasn't able to go. You know, when they went, I wasn't able to go. I'm sitting in that room. But it sat in my spirit like, I can't do that no more. So I got to that place, right? But I understood this. Like the Jews, and what God is telling them, you gotta let God break you. Yeah, that's right. See, I was a little hard-headed kid, thought I knew everything, doing everything, but I had to understand this. God had to break me where I was, because I thought I knew everything. I went against my mother's authority. I did everything I want to do. So he said, God has to break you, right? But the Jews had turned away from God, and they had to go through it until their hearts got right. But see, when we go through our situations, our hearts turn in a whole different direction because everything happens in a season. We don't understand what's going on, but God said this, I got to get your heart right while you're going through that season because the decision you made to do what you did, your heart wasn't with me. Your heart was with what was going on, right? So he said, your heart's got to be right. But God allows his people to go through their struggles because we need to be corrected and we need to get back on the right path before the storms will stop. He said, not only I'm going to let you go through it, but I'm going to let you go through it and process you in a place, and then the storms will stop. The people had to get to a breaking point in their lives before God could start shaping them. In order for us to get to that place, we understand God has to break me. But then, once my heart gets aligned with his desires, then I can come out. We often use that term, don't we? The devil's busy. Which is true. We understand that. But we also got to realize this. God is the one that allows it to come against us. God says, okay, go ahead, have your way with them. Just going to kill them. Have your way. They're acting out. I'm going to let you go ahead and beat their tails for a while because God's a God of love. Yeah. But he said, I'm going to let that come up against them. They're going to sit into a place where they're going to be able to look at themselves and say, this ain't right. This ain't right. I got to get myself right. And it takes some self-reflection sometimes. It takes us to go to a place of worship to understand where I'm vulnerable. It takes me, when I go through a situation, to understand, man, I messed up my finances. I did that, but I made a choice to do that. When I went out there and got that house, I knew I couldn't afford it. But at the time, they told me I could. Just a little bit down, and you'll be able to afford this. But I didn't read the fine print. And all of a sudden, this payment started going in a whole different direction. I wasn't counting on that. But in that season, I listened to somebody who seduced me into something and made it look good on paper. And I thought, man, I can afford it. But I'm anticipating God doing something that he didn't promise me. But I took it anyway, didn't I? But God says, not only are you going to go through it, I still have plans for you. I have not abandoned my plans for you. Even when you're going through your struggles. He said, I haven't left you. We just got to go through this. And understand this. Jeremiah is telling them this just to encourage them. Hey, man, you in that situation. You're going to be okay. God says this. God is going to help you do that, right? All right. So after I went through my year of punishment, I've been consumed with my homework. I've been broken down. My behavior, I understood, had gotten me in trouble. Passed all my classes. But I look back at that time and I learned from it. That marked me because I knew that wasn't that person that I was supposed to be. I knew that. So, but it took me to get to a place where I was totally broken and understand that this is for real. You know, being under the punishment, that stuff's real. On top of the beat down you take, you got to sit there and reflect on that. You've hurt your family, you've hurt people around you, all these decisions, because I made a decision that wasn't right. Okay, all right. He says this, start looking for him. When I go through my struggles, and I understand different things are coming up in my life, understand this, I got to start looking for him. I've already put myself in a situation where I've been broken. I've already reflected upon everything that's going on in my life. But now I said, I got to seriously start looking for him. Verse 13, he says, when you come looking for me, you'll find me. But he said, yes, when you get serious about finding me, and you want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. That's the promise. Amen. He said, but once you get to your breaking point, once you have walked away from the lifestyle that got you into that place, into this mess that God has called us, he said, then you will be able to move. But he said, you got to get serious with your walk with me. He said, because I can't get you out of your mess until you get serious. And then when you get serious, I'm not going to disappoint you. That's why I like this version, because he gets right to the point. He said, yeah, I know you're going to go through some struggles. I know you're going to doubt me sometime. I know it's going to be all things going to go break out in your life. But he said, once you get serious, to see how I'm going to handle your situation. But you got to get serious about your walk with me. You got to understand, when you walk with me, there is a situation that's going to come up in your life that's going to be just going to challenge you. We're going to have our children, they're going to start going off to college, right? They got authority around them now. They got the parameters around them now. They know they got to come back here to the house at a certain time. They know they got to wear clothes that represent what we believe. They understand all that kind of stuff. But when they get out to college and they look around at other folk that look similar to them, and those influences start coming up against them, what decisions will they make then? Like some of us, what decisions we make when we get around folk that look like us and have conduct that looks like something else? Can I stand for who I am in the midst of everything that's going on? Can I hold on to God in the midst of everything that's going on when everything else that's around me says give up? Can I do that? He said, you got to seek me. He said, once you get serious, I'll make everything all right. But it takes a submission, though. He said, then can you submit to me? Once you get into this place where you done got serious, you done came after me, now can I submit to God? That's the biggest thing that comes up against us. God says now, when you submit, now you're ready for your breakthrough. Once you get your place into a place, when you submit unto me, that's when your breakthrough comes. Your breakthrough don't come until you're in a place where you submit unto him. I have to break you and get you to a point where you only see me. God is ready to give you a breakthrough today. Somebody in here is looking for their breakthrough, whether it be their finances, be it in their family, whatever's going on in their life. Somebody in here is about to get their breakthrough today. And God is saying, I'm ready to bring you into that place. He said, and I won't disappoint you. God says, I'm going to bring you out of captivity, but I'm also going to punish the ones who took you. The time that they served in Babylon, he said, I'm going to take care of them once I get you out of here. Your time that you're going to serve is for them. You're going to show them how bad the God is that I am. When they get out of this situation, what did you leave behind? Homes, you planted, you've done everything in the midst of their land. But then he said, once I bring you out of there, then I'll be able to go take care of their tails. God ain't going to let nothing come against you that he won't deal with in the next second. He said, whoever comes against you, whatever attack that's come up against you, whatever thing that's coming up against you right now, I'm going to take care of that. All I'm trying to do is purge you and cleanse you of all unrighteousness. Then I'll take care of the rest of it. Only thing that happens to us when we go through our situation is knowing that God's going to take care of it. God's going to get us out of the situation, and God had a plan for us, right? But over those 30 years, I looked at it, right? As a young man, I had an afro, had little knowledge of my future, right? As I went through my life, right? I said I wasn't going to go back to prison, right? But I toiled around with it for a while because I started doing some things illegally. You know how it was. I went from a pusher, right? I'm out there doing the corners. I'm doing my thing, right? But I told God I wasn't going to go back to that place. And God's covering kept me from going back into that place. I became a pusher, then I went postal, right? I did the postal thing, right? And then God said that wasn't the plan I had for you. That's a transition that I had for you to get to the place where you want to be, right? Now you went from a pusher to postal to now preaching. How did God bring all this together? Over 30 years ago, he had a plan for me that I didn't see for myself. But if he didn't correct me back then, the things I would have continued to do in my life, I would have failed in that cycle. See, so I understood and I can appreciate what God did now. He had to sit my tail down. Although I played around the fringes of jail. But he said, no, I'm still not going to let you go back in there because me and you got work we got to do. Right? So your story's going to have more power when you get to a place you understand that I'm still in control. I had a plan for you when you came on this earth. You done went through some trials and tribulations. You done went through some ups and downs. But understand this. Man, I had a plan for you the whole time. Now you can look back on that time with great appreciation. You can sit back, go back into that new apartment, that new house you got, and all the struggle that it took to get you there. And you can thank God because I could be that one on the side of the road. I could be that one that, that couldn't get off drugs. I could be that one that is all messed up. I could be the one that can't never have children. That could be me. But God, you bless me with kids. They may be bad, they may be off the chain, but I tell you what, you bless me with that. And there's folks standing around like, man, I wish I could have a bad little boy, a bad little girl running around my house. But God, you bless me. I think about how he took me through the process. There was some time, man, I wanted to walk out on you. I didn't want to talk to you no more. You done took family members away from me. How could you do that? He said, I still had a plan. I still had a plan. It don't make no difference how you feel against me. The thing about it is, they left him, but he didn't leave them. Even though they was in a place they shouldn't have been, God still sent them a comforter and said, I'm still going to take care of your crazy tail because I've chosen you to be my people. That's what we understand when God has a plan for us. When we go through our struggles, never give up on God. Whatever's going on in our life, it ain't never about us. It's always about him. And how can I serve him better? How can I do better, Lord? When next time you want to say, the devil's busy, my God is busier. How about that? God got a plan for me. God brought me out that corner for a reason. God brought me out of that cell for a reason. Start thinking God and understanding, man, I could have been, should have been, but I'm not. God still has a plan for me.
Thank you for watching. Please come join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. We are located at 40 West 40th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46208. We are located inside of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center. Remember to stay connected and subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and website. Thank you and have a blessed week. God bless.